The night stretched endlessly across the flat plains of Minnesota, where the silence of farmland is broken only by the rustling of wind through tall grass. In these rural stretches, the darkness is absolute, pressing in on anyone who dares to walk alone. It was here, among endless fields and gravel roads, that a young man's final words, "Oh, echoed into the night, leaving behind one of the most haunting mysteries in modern America. The town of Marshall lay just a small dot of civilization in the vast Midwest. A quiet farming community, unremarkable to outsiders but bound together by neighborly ties and familiar faces. Its residents were accustomed to long drives, dirt roads, and nights so dark the stars burned brighter than anywhere else. Nothing sinister ever seemed to happen here, until May of 2008. Life for most young people in Marshall carried a comforting rhythm. Graduation parties in barns, long drives through cornfields, late-night hangouts at gas stations or small-town diners. That was the world Brandon Swanson knew. Safe, simple, and unshaken by the kinds of tragedies that seemed reserved for bigger cities. But beneath this ordinary backdrop was a subtle fragility. Out here, where distances stretched endlessly and landmarks looked the same, getting lost wasn't impossible. And when night fell, even the familiar could feel like a labyrinth. On May 13th, Brandon attended a small celebration marking the end of the spring semester at Minnesota West Community and Technical College. Friends recalled him as light-hearted that evening, smiling, joking, nothing unusual. There was no shadow of doom in his demeanor, no indication of the nightmare that would soon unfold. He was 19 years old, with plans, ambitions, and a life unfolding before him. Brandon loved learning, enjoyed spending time with friends, and was known as responsible and trustworthy. His parents, Annette and Brian, spoke often about how proud they were of him. He wasn't the type to disappear on a whim. He wasn't reckless, he wasn't careless, which made what happened all the more chilling. As the night of May 13th gave way to the early hours of May 14th, Brandon began his drive home. It should have been routine, just a short trip through familiar territory. But sometime after midnight, his car veered into a ditch near Taunton, a small rural town just northwest of Marshall. The car wasn't damaged, and Brandon wasn't hurt. But when he tried to maneuver out, the wheels spun uselessly in the soft earth. Stuck. In a place like Taunton, traffic was sparse. Calling for help was the only option. Brandon dialed his parents' number. On the other end of the line, his father picked up, groggy from sleep. Brandon explained the situation calmly. His car was stuck, but he was fine. He needed a ride home. His parents agreed, telling him to stay put while they came to find him. And then something strange began to unfold. Brandon described his location as being near Lynd, a town southeast of Marshall. He insisted that was where he was. His parents drove out, scanning the area for his car, but they saw nothing. Brandon reassured them, guiding them as best he could over the phone. He spoke with his mother and father for nearly 47 minutes as they tried to triangulate his location. The longer the call went on, the more unsettling the realization became. They couldn't find him. His directions didn't match the reality of where they were driving. Somewhere out there, Brandon walked in the dark, believing he was headed toward safety. His parents, desperate, drove circles in the night, headlights sweeping empty fields. They could hear him, they could talk to him, but they couldn't see him. Then came the moment that would forever freeze in their memory. Brandon's voice, calm until now, suddenly shifted. Panic cracked through as he exclaimed, "Oh, shit!" The line went dead. The silence that followed was suffocating. His parents tried calling back, over and over, but Brandon never answered. When dawn broke, Brandon's car was found, exactly where he had said it was, in a ditch near Taunton. But this was miles away from Lynd, where he believed he had been walking toward. Somehow, Brandon had become disoriented, convinced he was traveling in one direction when he was actually elsewhere. The discovery of the car ignited the search. Police, volunteers, dogs, and helicopters swept the surrounding farmland. The area was combed meticulously. It was as though the ground itself had swallowed him whole. The first witness accounts were heartbreaking. Brandon's parents recounting the call, explaining how they had listened to their son vanish in real time. There was no body, no clear evidence of foul play, just the mystery of that final, abrupt exclamation. In Marshall and the surrounding towns, shock rippled quickly. Everyone knew everyone, and the thought of a young man vanishing into the night struck a nerve that words couldn't capture. Farmers checked their land. Locals joined search parties. Rumors began to swirl, whispered in church pews, grocery aisles, and gas stations. Some said Brandon must have fallen into the Yellow Medicine River, which ran nearby. Others believed he had stumbled into an abandoned well, hidden in the tall grass. A few whispered darker possibilities: an abduction, a crime covered by silence. Police threw themselves into the investigation. Early searches focused on the riverbanks. Cadaver dogs picked up a scent trail leading to water. But beyond that, nothing. The river was dragged. Divers plunged into the murky depths. No trace of Brandon was ever found. False leads emerged. People claimed to have heard or seen things that night. Each tip raised hope, only to collapse under scrutiny. Witness accounts conflicted, timelines blurred, and theories grew wild. The forensic analysis brought little comfort. There was no blood, no signs of a struggle near the car. His belongings were gone with him. Everything pointed to Brandon walking away into the night, but not to where or why. Investigators tried reconstructing his movements. Based on cell tower pings, they believed he was far from where he thought he was, perhaps heading in the opposite direction entirely. In the rural Midwest, where every gravel road and field looks the same, disorientation was easy. But it was the sudden, unexplained cutoff of the call that refused to make sense. The suspects? There were none. No enemies, no shadowy figures lurking in Brandon's life. He was not involved with drugs or gangs. He had no debts. His world was ordinary, which only deepened the mystery. Speculation about motives grew darker in the vacuum of answers. Could someone have picked him up? Could he have encountered a stranger on the road? Some wondered if his death was accidental and hidden, an animal attack, a fall into an unmarked shaft. None of it could be proven. Media coverage intensified. Brandon's disappearance was unlike most. It wasn't just that he was gone, it was how. His parents had been on the phone with him. They had practically heard him vanish. That detail alone turned the case into a haunting national headline. The community, once so serene, felt the weight of paranoia. Parents began warning their children never to walk alone at night. Farmers double-checked wells and sheds on their property. Theories spun endlessly, each more bizarre than the last. UFO abductions, government cover-ups, supernatural explanations. Anything seemed possible when the logical had failed. As the weeks turned into months, investigators came under fire. Critics accused them of fumbling the search, of not casting the net wide enough early on. Frustration mounted. The family demanded answers that wouldn't come. And then came the cruelest part: dead ends. Every promising lead fizzled. Every theory circled back to the same place: dark fields, a stuck car, and a final phone call. There was never a critical break. No sudden confession, no shocking piece of evidence, just absence. The silence of Brandon's fate became its own kind of evidence, a reminder that sometimes the darkest mysteries don't end in revelation, but in void. Brandon's legacy, however, did not vanish. Out of the tragedy came Brandon's Law, passed in 2009. It required police to take missing persons reports immediately, regardless of age. Before then, families of missing adults were often told to wait 24 to 48 hours, assuming the person had left willingly. Brandon's case changed that. His disappearance ensured others would not face the same delay. Yet, questions remain. Haunting, gnawing questions. Did he slip into the river that night, his body carried away beyond search? Did he stumble into some hidden trap in the landscape? Or was there another presence in those fields, unseen, unaccounted for? For the people of Marshall, the story is part of their identity now. His name is spoken in schools, in safety briefings, in conversations about vigilance. His parents continue to advocate, their grief reshaped into determination. And still, when the wind howls across those endless Minnesota fields, some swear they can almost hear an echo. A young man's voice caught between confusion and fear. O-S. A sound that cuts through the silence of the night. A sound that leaves an open question where an answer should be. Brandon Swanson vanished in real time, his final moments tethered to a phone call. The world knows the beginning of his story, but not the end. And until that silence is broken, his absence remains one of the most haunting mysteries of the American Midwest.